I'll bring the Butte-Silver Bow Council of Commissioners Committee of the Whole meeting to order for April 9th, 2025. Can we please have a roll call?
One presiding, 8 present, 3 absent.
Thank you. Please let the record reflect Commissioner Shea, Commissioner Anderson, and Commissioner Callahan are excused for this evening. Commissioner Walker, would you please lead us in the prayer and the pledge?
Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which so greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item on tonight's agenda is any public comment on any items that are on tonight's agenda. If there's a member of the public that would like to speak on any item that is on tonight's agenda, now would be your opportunity. Please come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Howdy, Reddy Frost, 2000 Roberts Avenue. So communication number 2025-170, talking about authorizing the mailing of tax deed notifications. Now, is that the folks who buy those tax deeds, or the notice that these folks are going to be having their deeds put up at a tax auction? If you guys could just tell me when you talk about it, that'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak on any item on tonight's agenda? All right. Moving on to the report of the chair, I just want to send our thoughts and prayers to Commissioner Shea and her family tonight. She did lose her mother this afternoon, so just thoughts and prayers with her and her family at this time. The other item that I want to talk about is just to remind the commissioners that the use of cell phones during the council meetings could violate open meeting laws, so please don't use those during those meetings. And that is all that I have for that. I'll move on to section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and/or presentations. Presentations, communication 2025-143, Aubrey, Japp, Butte-Silver Bow Archives Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a presentation for April 9th, 2025 regarding the Archives 2024 Annual Report. Ms. Japp.
It's really tall. Hi, everyone. My name's Aubrey Japp. I'm the Director of Council, and I'm here with our Assistant Director, Lindsay Mulcahy. And we're here again this year to talk about our 2024 Annual Report. So you all have a copy of this document in front of you, and what we'll be talking about tonight is kind of a slimmed down version of what you have in front of you, and we'll just go through some of the highlights. So a little bit about, we're established in 1981 to be the repository for the non-current government record of Butte-Silver Bow. So we work with all of the departments and their staff to transfer records they're not using and bring them to our facility and allow public access to them. And we have nearly every department's records within our holdings. We also work with the public to collect their historic manuscripts. So this can be businesses, their papers, organizations, photographs, family papers, things of that nature. And we also manage the Clark Chateau, which is a historic house museum, and they offer tours to the public, as well as do a lot of youth humanities and arts programming. So last year in 2024, we served 2,226 patrons in-house and another 1,011 people remotely. These are people researching their family, doing academic papers, looking for photographs to hang in their homes and their businesses. We had 173 requests for government record from Butte-Silver Bow departments. Those are primarily the courts for their records, planning department, clerk and recorder records. Those are kind of our three big ones that we're always in. We had 3,702 volunteer hours logged. We have about a team of 50 volunteers. Our auditorium, we had 239 events scheduled in that space, serving just under 4,000 people. And last year, we received just over 200 collections. And some of those might range from like one piece of paper to an actual truckload of items. So it just, things come into us as they come in.
So we do a lot of public presentations and programming at the archives, and that's during our regular business hours as well as after hours. So if you guys can ever make it, we'd love to see you. This year we were excited to send 3 of our staff members to the Northwest Archivist Conference. And while they were there, they also had the opportunity to present on social media and public outreach for the archives. As I mentioned, we do a lot of programming, and we take pride in how well we do it, quite honestly. And our social media outreach is great. If you guys don't follow us, please do. We're on Facebook as well as Instagram. So we were excited to send them there. Aubrey and I, also had the opportunity to head over to Helena, and we presented to the Lewis and Clark Genealogical Society. And Butte also has one, but it was cool to go somewhere else and share what kind of resources we have. So we did a presentation on our resources and how we could use them if you were to come and visit us and do some genealogy research.
This last summer, we hosted some members from the 40th American Conference for Irish Studies. This is a conference that's regional and was held in Missoula this last year. So they did a Butte field trip day. And so with that, we worked with Ancient Order of Hibernians. We unveiled a new plaque that they put on the cemetery that they've been working really hard to restore. And then we held a reception at the archives where we met with Eamon O'Queeve, who's part of the Irish government. And then Jim Keeman and myself gave the group a guided tour. We went up to the Granite Mountain and the Anselmo and talked about our mining heritage and Irish heritage. This last year was year 4 of an intern from Middle Tennessee State University. We had a woman named Mercedes Collins here this last year, and her interest is in historic preservation. And so with that, she did a presentation at the temple with Kate McCourt called Preservation 101. It just talked to residents kind of about what historic preservation is, what it means if your home is on the register, just the very basics of all how that works. And she also developed a series of exhibit panels, some of which are actually on display in the rotunda now. And that's an intern that comes to us. Other than finding them a place to house, Middle Tennessee State pays for the entire thing for them to come here for 8 weeks. And it's been a really great way to get some new people in the community here.
Last year, we were also asked to participate in the St. James Legacy Tour. We did that in conjunction with Clearly St. James, but they also invited past nurses and such. But we did a legacy tour, and we shared the history of St. James in our community, which was really fun to do and exciting, and we were able to do that a couple times. And I think they're going to be doing it again, so we might participate again.
So we'll talk a little bit more about our cemetery programming, but Lindsay and I really love cemetery history. It's kind of one of our little passion projects we have. And so we partnered with some other Montana organizations, one being the Extreme History Project out of Bozeman, and another with Mark Johnson, who is a professor and lives in Helena and has done a lot of Chinese research. So we did a workshop where in the morning we each did a presentation about cemetery history. So Crystal talked about cemetery symbolism, Mark talked about Butte's Chinese cemeteries, and then I just spoke about kind of Butte cemeteries in general. And then in the afternoon, we went to the cemeteries and did a tour of it, had a scavenger hunt for cemetery symbols. And it was really great. We had about 40 attendees attend this day's event. We also partner with Butte Citizens in Preservation and Revitalization on the Story of Butte walking tour app. So you can scan the QR code here, but it's a free app and website people can go to where we've developed walking tours on different themes. So this last year, we produced 3 new tours. One, we had John Sesso talk about Butte Superfund history. Fred Kuivik discussed historic mining technologies, and Dale Martin discussed Butte's railroad history. And we're adding new tours all the time, and it's based off of the information that's on the historic plaques and different themes that we just think people will find interested.
So Hike Through History is one of our most successful programs that we put on. We partner with Reclamation Health Department and Parks and Rec to put on this program. And what we do is we provide 8 hikes led by different historians throughout town. And then we also, of course, include the reclamation side of it, as many places in Butte obviously need that discussed and need that promoted. So we're really proud to participate in that. And we've been doing that since 2019. We have the next 8 lined up for this summer. They take place at 9 a.m. on Thursdays in the summer. So if you can make those, we'd love to see you there. Some of the ones that we've done in the past, as you can see, Thompson Park. We've, of course, done cemeteries, but various trails throughout town that we try to promote and then promote that history along those trailways. Our Brown Bag Lunch series we've been doing for a number of years, and these are also highly successful with probably a minimum of 40 attendees each one, but we've had up to 90 attendees. And our Brown Bag Lunch series is held the second and fourth Wednesdays of every month, and we invite different historians throughout the state to come discuss great Montana history. Of course, we love to focus on Butte history, but there's other great history that we love to talk about too. And this is a free program, and it happens at lunchtime. So if you guys are looking for something to do at your lunch on second and fourth Wednesdays, come see us.
We hosted 3 exhibits in 2024. The first exhibit we hosted was called So Butte, and this was an exhibit with Laura Sargent, her family-owned Broadway Antiques, and the Butte Quilting Guild. So we brought in nearly 20 sewing machines into the building and held some programming in conjunction with that. One event, we encouraged people to bring their historic textiles and come up and learn how to store them and show them off. And yeah, it was really great. We talked about Butte sewing history and the WPA sewing rooms that were here, and it was a neat opportunity to kind of showcase the evolution of Butte sewing machines. We also hosted another exhibit called Visions of Butte. That was just a photo exhibit where we put some of our historic photographs on display, and those were available for purchase. And then we hosted an exhibit with Wild Montana and showcased local artwork about Butte's wilderness here. And then collections, as I mentioned, we brought in just a little over 200 collections in 2024. One really wonderful collection we got was the Joe Vukovich collection. It includes photographs and video footage documenting the Lady of the Rockies being put on the East Ridge. Joe was on the helicopter that put on, when they put the lady on the East Ridge, and so it documents all of that footage. And before this collection came in, we really had very little documentation of Our Lady and her construction, so that is a pretty priceless thing that we've received that has hundreds of different slides and scenes of the whole process.
We were also fortunate to have a collection about the Boston and Montana Consolidated Copper and Silver Company come into us, and it contained their legal financial records, which is something we also didn't have. And while everybody knows about the Anaconda Company, a lot of people don't know of these other large companies that disappeared throughout time. So this was also a great one to add to our collection.
One grant-funded project we had was to implement a new content management system, and what that is the system that the public can use to see what holdings we have in our facility. So anyone can go online and do a keyword search for, say, Boston and Montana Consolidated, and what you'll get is a list of collections we have that is pertinent to your request. And so we had kind of long outgrown our old system, and spent the last 2 years identifying what new system we would want to use, and then the migration from the old system to the new. So that was completed just this past year. We moved to over 21,000 collection records over to the new system. Just shy of 40,000 images were moved over, and it's proven to be a much more user-friendly interface for people to engage with. We can also communicate with our patrons who are requesting research to be done through that portal and link it to our collection. So in future, we'll have some real statistics on what collections are being most requested, most used, how many requests are coming in. And then if we look to identify future grant projects, we can use those numbers to identify that this collection is indeed used by X number of people, and that it has priority that should be looked at further. And then back to cemeteries, we received grant funding from the Foundation of Montana History for the Business of Burials in Butte project. We have an exhibit on display through the end of this month in our lobby right now that was kind of the finale of this project. But through this last summer, we did cemetery tours of each of the major cemeteries, half in the morning and half in the evening. We produced a booklet documenting the history of each cemetery and different people that are buried within them. That is free for the public, and that was funded through the grant programming. And then tomorrow evening, we're hosting with that a Find a Grave workshop through the Butte Genealogy Society. And then, as I mentioned, the exhibit will be up through the end of this month.
So we are wildly proud of our volunteers. We have about 50 volunteers, and they do a wide range of tasks for us, whether it's scanning documents for us, cleaning glass negatives, creating Excel databases so we can better search our records when we're looking for a certain address, perhaps in a large collection. And they often help us do research as well. So last year, real quick mention, the BLDC always has a Volunteer of the Year, and our volunteer, Jim McCarthy, was honored with that award. So we're wildly proud of them.
And then I just really quickly want to talk about the Friends of the Butte Archives Board. It's a nonprofit arm we have at the archives that help us fund our programming and exhibits. And different preservation activities we do, like binding of newspapers. They also fund a fellowship and stipend named after Carrie Johnson. When she passed, she left a really wonderful gift to the Friends, and we've used that fund to allow researchers to apply to travel to Butte, and we help pay for their lodging so they can spend weeks here researching. So this year we gave out 2 fellowships, one to Jennifer Hill and another to Jeff Gay. Jennifer Hill was looking through the Women's Protective Union records, and Jeff Gay was looking at the APA riot of 1894. And then we also awarded a small stipend. Those are just awards of $500 that can be used for Butte residents or people outside of Butte. And this was actually awarded to a high school student who is looking at Chinese history in Montana. And then their work is then submitted to the archives and then can be used for future research. For researchers, it's also a really nice way to highlight some of our collections. So Jennifer Hill's, we have a really wonderful WPU collection, but it hadn't been gone through very much truly. And so with her research, we now have a better understanding of what is in that collection. So it has a great benefit to us as well. They also fund a twinning relationship between Butte and Allihies, which is a really small village on the Barra Peninsula in County Cork in Ireland. And they helped fund a trip to go over to see the Allihies Copper Mine Museum. That's where but many of Butte's Irish people came from, this village of Allihies. So while we were there, we got to tour the copper mines. We got to meet with 7 different schools, from high school to really little kiddos. Go meet them. They're doing virtual exchanges with schools in Montana. And we got to chat with them. And then we got to really get a feel for the color of what Ireland was like and where the people from Butte came from. And the people who come to research at the archives, we now have a really better understanding of like these villages they're talking about and where their families came from. And we also made really good connections over there where now we can help refer people to people in Ireland that can help people with different research requests. And then I just want to talk about the Clark Chateau. So as I mentioned, they do a lot of arts and humanities programming. In 2024, they just had shy of 3,000 total visitors. They had 302 volunteer hours. They hosted 5 exhibits, 78 public programs, and 49 public classes. And then a little bit about their programming is they partner with Dear Butte, which is a writers and songwriting residency here in Butte. The artists who come in always do some sort of workshop or lecture at the Chateau. They have a ukulele club that meets twice a month in the Chateau Ballroom. They host an after-school art program called Young Creators. They also host a book club. They have a high school internship that is a 9-week program where a few kids, they get to learn different modalities in the arts world, and then at the end they choose their favorite and then do a final project. They organize the Uptown Butte Art Walk, which will start in May. And then they also host an artist in residence through an organization called Open Air, which allows artists to spend weeks here in Butte, and then they have an exhibit associated with the artist at the end. And with that, I really appreciate your patience, and if you have any questions or anything, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It's always good to have you come before this body and give that update, because it reminds me of the true treasure that we do have in Butte that often gets overlooked as you go throughout your day-to-day life. So it's cool to see the projects that you're working on. As far as public participation, I'm assuming it grows year to year just on different avenues. I know there's a lot of people doing family lineage type research, and they've utilized your resources. Is that still an ongoing thing?
Oh, yeah. So Chairman Morgan, yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah, we have a ton of people coming in to do research. We have a lot of Butte people that come in to do their family research, and then we get a lot of people from out of town that come in and look up their family lineage. So we can help identify vital records, birth and death information, obituaries. If they immigrated here, we can help find their immigration papers. We can see where they lived, where they worked. We can find out about their home, usually find a photograph about it. So it really starts kind of a wild goose chase of following breadcrumbs to see what all we can have. But absolutely, we get people in. Today we were quite busy with a lot of researchers coming in, especially in the spring and summer months is when we get really busy.
Great. Does any commissioner have any question? Commissioner O'Leary.
Yeah, Director Japp and Assistant Director Mulcahy, thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate all the ways that the archives interfaces with the community. I sure have enjoyed some of the exhibits that you guys have done, and I've been up there many times researching buildings and whatnot, so I really appreciate what you guys all do. You mentioned that a bunch of the collections are being digitized in some form. Is there an easy way for folks to access those collections on your website, or what is the best way to do that?
Chairman Morgan,
Director Japp.
Commissioner O'Leary, they are. So a lot of our collections that are being digitized aren't necessarily you from your home couldn't browse through and say, I mentioned the Women's Protective Union collection, you couldn't look through all of the ledgers. But most of our photographs we do try to make available for the user at home. So if you're searching something, yes, you should be able to see the photographs associated with that collection. If not, though, so our oral histories are a good example. Those are not currently available just online, but they are all digitized. So if you request one, we can instantly send it to you the same day, the audio file and the transcript, so you can listen to it that way. So it kind of depends on what the document is, but we're always trying to make things more and more accessible, and even if it's not available online, make it so we can really quickly help the researcher or the patron requesting the item.
Follow up? No. Okay. Anything else? Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Nothing really. I just want to say you guys' professionalism at the archives when you come tonight, these things, everything you guys always produce is just phenomenal. And so I just want you to know how much I appreciate it. I told my dad I had this tonight, and he wanted me to let you guys know that he appreciates it because Jim helped him find how many home runs he hit one time at Scown or something, and he was very pleased with that. So I just wanted to let you know that I really appreciate your professionalism all the time, and I think what you guys do is amazing, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thatcher.
One thing that I would mention that just dawned on me is this picture of the Columbia Gardens, I never knew existed, because I've never seen a picture from the aerial view of where that whole thing was placed. I mean, I unfortunately wasn't around when that was there, so I had no idea the layout, but this shows me more than I knew when I walked in this door, so thank you.
You're welcome. The inside identifies what is what, too, kind of, sort of, so you can see what is what building.
Way different than I anticipated. So, okay, any other questions? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you for being here. it's always interesting to see the archives, you know. So many young people serving in the council or other places around. I mean, it's hard for a person my age to look at someone like my friend John Morgan, Chairman Morgan, and think that he may not have had the opportunity to visit the Columbia Gardens, you know. It seems like history goes by so fast, you don't realize it. When you look at some of the pictures of the Columbia Gardens and some other things you do, and the people that volunteer for you up there, you know, I remember when it first came, I think it was a mill levy at the time to turn the old fire station into the archives, you know. And I think at that time, it was like $200,000 or $300,000, and people thought that was a lot of money, you know. Now we look at them things that's $2 or $3 million to do the same thing. But you have a great board. I'm friends with a lot of people that volunteer. I'm friends with a lot of people that serve on your board, and I just like to give you kudos for what you do. And if you guys think we can help you in any way, I, as a commissioner, am willing to step forward and help you out. Thank you for what you do.
Any other questions? All right, well, seeing none, thank you both very much. All right, next communication, or moving on to communication 2025-183. JP Gallagher, Chief Executive, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a presentation for April 9th, 2025 regarding updates on the 2025 legislative session. Chief Executive Gallagher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan and Commissioners. Tonight, we're having our lobbyists that work with us for Butte-Silver Bow and kind of describe the work that they've done. I think that's been a question of, you know, exactly what our lobbyists do at the Capitol, how they keep us informed about the bills that are there, and the process that goes into the drafting of the bills, the moving through the Senate or the House, and through how they cross to the different the different houses and how everything works there. So today with us is Pat Noonan and John Melia, and so I'd like to welcome them up and so that they can do the presentation today. We did provide everybody with bills that they've been working on, and so I just want to welcome them here tonight and let them present to you and be available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Welcome, John Melia.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the Commission. It's good to be here with you this evening. For the record, my name is John Malia, spelled M-A-L-I-A. I am the first M of M&M Consulting with Pat Noonan and a guy named Nate McConnell. A little background on myself. I spent 21 years in politics. I spent some time in D.C. and in Montana working for Senator Max Baucus, and then came to Helena and worked all 8 years under Governor Bullock's administration. Having to take a 2-year cooling off period from that, we then formed M&M Consulting and have been running a lobbyist consulting shop for the last 4 years. Wanted to just kind of run through kind of what goes on with us up at the Capitol. Every Monday we have a phone call with the executive team, just kind of going through bills that they see that are coming, maybe an issue, maybe we support, maybe we just watch that bill. With this handout, I think you could see a list of, on one side are House bills that were introduced in the House that we've worked on, and on the other side are Senate bills that we worked on in the Senate. It's a pretty heavy list. A lot of it from the Butte-Silver Bow side obviously reflected TIF districts, your levying abilities. A lot of that was under attack early on in the session. We were able to get some of that stuff tabled. I don't know how much detail you want me to go in, or if you would like to hear from Pat and then just ask us questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, if that's kind of what you're thinking, Chief Executive, just to open the floor for any questions that they might have on this list.
Yeah, Chairman Morgan, I think that, you know, introduce Pat up here and just kind of talk about the communication that we've had and the experience that they have in communicating. And one of the things that they communicate directly with my chief of staff, Jim Cambage, pretty directly, almost on a daily basis, just making sure that we're following on what's happening at the legislative session. Jim spends a lot of time making sure that we're up to date, and then also notifying us when we need to be at the legislature, when we need to testify, because although they represent us, it's important for us to be there as a local government, to represent Butte-Silver when needed. It's great to have lobbyists there, but it's more impactful for us to be there as a local government when needed to testify for or against a bill.
Okay.
So I'd like to welcome Pat Noonan up.
Mr. Noonan.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, my name's Pat Noonan. That's Noonan. And I was a legislator here in Butte in the House of Representatives from 2009 to 2016. And then I too had a 2-year cooling off period and have been lobbying since then. It's been an interesting session. Things have moved very fast, and I think sometimes there's lots of misconceptions about exactly how the legislature works and how quickly things move over these 90 days. And so there are several deadlines that happen throughout the legislature. And so as you can see on the bills that we have here, our process is every Monday and then throughout the week as needed. We meet with the executive team and we'll go over any bills that have just dropped that we know of, any bills that are coming up. We have lots of communications with MACO or the League of City and Towns and go through their list, bring this list to the executive team and have them review it, and we talk through if these are bills that affect Butte, do we support them, do we oppose them, or are we just monitoring them? And as you go through the legislature, one thing that people don't really get is just how quickly this moves. And so when you start the session, I know there's, like, people always talk about a bill got introduced in November or a bill got made at some other time. What generally happens is when you go up the legislature, you go in, you do your orientation, and that's when you elect leadership. And at that moment, because prior to the session, every legislator gets an unlimited amount of placeholders or bill drafts that they can put in that are LC numbers. So tons of those get placed that will never actually get ran. So for example, when I was a legislator in November, when I would go up, I would do 5 generally revised Medicaid, 5 generally revised gambling laws, 5 generally medical marijuana laws, 5 generally revised health and human services. And mostly that's because once you get to the session, you're then allowed 7 bill drafts that you can drop from there. And you don't know all the topics. You kind of pick some topics that you think are going to work or topics that you're interested in. So you then have bill drafts out there. So there's a ton of bill drafts out there. And let's say, before you get to transmittal, you're allowed no new bill drafts. But for some reason, there's an issue that comes up with Medicaid, or there's an issue that comes up with human services, or there's an issue that comes up with something. There's actual bill drafts that you can make a bill, so you have options. Or you might have colleagues that come up and say, gee, I'd really like to do this bill on gambling law. I see you have an LC number, and you can transfer it to them. So we always start the session with roughly 4,000 different LCs. These last 2 sessions, I will say, have been uncharacteristic at the amount of bills that get ran. So in the House, I think today they had 923 was one of the House bill numbers. And in the Senate, we're definitely up into the 800s. And so these last 2 sessions will be the most bills that have ever been introduced and had hearings in legislative history. When I was there, you might get to an 800, but generally around 700 in the House, let alone the Senate. And so things move really fast. And then you have all these series of deadlines. So you'll hit a transmittal deadline, and at the moment that your transmittal deadline, your general bill transmittal, so if I'm in the House and I drop a bill, I have to have that bill transmitted to the Senate by this certain date, which means I have to have a hearing, and I have to have it voted on, and I have to have it voted on twice on the House floor before it can be transmitted to the Senate, and the same goes for the Senate. And just today, so Saturday is our revenue budget bill deadline, so today, they'll be on the floor in both the House and the Senate all day tomorrow and the next day, pushing through and voting on any bills that have money attached to them in any way, because if your bill started in the Senate and had money attached and it is not transmitted to the House by Saturday, the bill is gone. And so we often run into moments where during the session, and they seem to come all the time, that these deadlines mean you end up in long hearings. Every single person that thought of a bill that wanted to get it out, whether they had it ready or not, has to have it in and by that day. And so it moves very fast. And so I think that people can experience that. That's usually when everybody is just like, oh my God, there's so many bills. I didn't know this bill existed. What's happening with this bill? It's because we're hitting a deadline. And so now we got about 20 days left. There's a good chance that they'll try to end a little bit early because they're going to try to save some days with everything that's happening in the federal government. There's lots of reasons that there could be a special session. For example, we passed Medicaid expansion. A good portion of the governor's budget is kind of built around the idea of Medicaid expansion that has a 90% FMAP payback from the feds to Montana. If the new administration changes that, anything from 90%, there'll have to be a special session to redo the bill because our bill will be null and void because it has a clause in it that says if the FMAP changes below 90%. And so saving a couple of days is rather normal. I don't know if you're paying attention. This session, people want to get out of there. The Senate is finding a new reason to fight with each other every single week and like to air their grievances very often. And so they are going to try to get out of here sooner. Last session, for example, they never did Saturdays because it's 90 working days. It's not just a 90 timer. It's every day that they clock in on the House floor counts as a day or the Senate floor. 90 straight days to get it, 90 working days to get it done. So now we're into our last 20. Last session, they didn't work hardly any Saturdays, maybe like 2. And so last session, we went until May 6th, and that was the longest legislative session in history as far as the date goes. Generally, we end somewhere between 24th, 29th, somewhere right in there is traditional. And so we're no promises. We could be here until May 6th. The calendar is going to goes all the way out to May 6th or longer, since we didn't start till January 6th. But we're thinking week or two after Easter, we're hoping that they wrap it up. The budget is now in the Senate. They're going to do executive action on that on Friday. Once House Bill 2 and all of its corresponding bills actually clear out of the Senate and go back to the House for concurrence, at that moment they could make a motion to sine die and quit at any moment, just depending on the mood of the place. And the sunnier it gets outside, everybody wants to get out of there. So things are moving fast. There is a lot of good stuff. I think if you look at the list, I would say this is a pretty hefty list, I will just say. As far as all the clients that we have, Butte-Silver Bow might be our heftiest lift of the amount of bills and substantial topics that we have to deal with as we go. And so when we made this list, we kind of tried to prioritize them and group them in similar ideas. But one of the main things that we've worked on this entire session has to do with your mills, property taxes, and TIF, because there's a lot. There were bills that were going to very much affect Butte's TIF in a negative way. There were several bills that were going to wipe out all the mills and make you go back to actually the voters again with a new formula on exactly how many votes you needed to pass mills. So there were lots of things that were very detrimental to Butte. There was also lots of very good things that we still have riding out there. Lots of stuff in appropriations. House Bill 5 and House Bill 7, a substantial amount of money to go to Montana Tech to be able to start a pilot project on proto mining. We also have $5 million in House Bill 5 right now for Montana, and Butte would be one of the sites. Never during the legislature do you guarantee a site. There's usually a public process where you get to build things. But Butte is one of the sites to build a state-of-the-art training facility for firefighters. And so there is lots of good stuff out there, and we are closing in on the gap. And so by the time we get to the end, we'll know exactly where we're at. And a little explanation on the list, because some of it is just language that we use. And stop me if you don't want to hear all this, but when it says tabled, that means it didn't get a positive vote to come out of committee. Doesn't mean that the bill is entirely dead, because it could still come out of committee, but it means it's sitting on the table in committee, and they could reconsider their action at any moment. If the bill is failed, it means it missed its transmittal date, or it failed on second or third reading on the House or Senate floor and was indefinitely postponed. And the bills on this list that say passed, and then you'll see the House and the Senate in parentheses next to it, that means it passed both houses, and it's basically on its way to the governor to either be vetoed or to be enrolled into law. And so that might help you kind of read this. And when we put this together, we tried to put exactly what the action was on the bills that we were working on. And this is bills that we worked with the executive team, whether we testified or members of your executive team testified, or we worked the halls because we were opposition or we were for. That is a good chunk of these bills. This does not include the numerous other bills that we go through week to week to decide if we have anything other than a monitoring responsibility so we can keep you updated as to where it's at or if amendments are changed to substantially change the bill pro or negative for us. I think that was a pretty good lesson there. I'll stop, and if there's any questions, please feel free.
Thank you. Yeah, the overall process is interesting because we always try to tie it to the local side, which is completely different than what it is on the state side. And so trying to stay on top of how it switches between houses has always been interesting. Does any of the commissioners have any questions? Commissioner O'Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Noonan, for your presentation. I just had one question about Senate Bill 266. I care a lot about affordable housing, and this is the one regarding triplexes and fourplexes on any lot. Any particulars on that would be worthwhile sharing?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, this is regarding Senate Bill 266. This is the municipal zoning to allow for triplexes and fourplexes on any property. I've been following this through the process, but I'm not sure if you have any particular updates about that.
I would have to look up where it's at right now, if you could give me 1 second.
Sure.
It's hearing in the House and passed the Senate.
Okay. And it passed the Senate? Passed the Senate. And it was on zoning. I do remember. Yeah, I think it'll probably go through the House. Is that one that you don't like? I'm happy to hand out business cards before we leave, so we can all stay in touch.
Commissioner O'Leary.
Yeah, mostly it's a thing I'm generally in favor of, and I think it would be more in line with how Butte has historically developed. Lots of density in Uptown Butte. So I just generally like the bill. And then I guess one follow-up, if I could, we were talking about this during the Budget and Finance Committee. If you could give us a general overview, if you have one, of kind of where we're at on the property tax bills and the myriad of property tax bills that are going on, it'd be great to hear just some update on that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner. So I think you've probably seen a few headlines that property taxes, nothing's really moved exactly how everybody has wanted. Kind of the overall feeling is the governor had kind of offered a few different takes, mainly a rebate again. That didn't seem to set very well with the legislators this session. And so what's kind of moving now would be, I believe it's a package with Senator Dunwell and Representative Byrne that looks at some different actual property relief with using some money to buy things down. I'm not sure if there's a rebate on that one or not, but I'm happy to get that bill number to you. That seems to be the vehicle. And on some of these bigger bills, such as property tax and things die, things come back to life, and then they seem to kind of find a vehicle that they like a few of the ideas from here. Maybe they like some of the governor's ideas, and they tend to kind of make that the boat and put what they like in there, take what they like out from any other bills and move that forward. And I think if there is a shot at getting any property tax relief, that is what's going to happen this session. I mean, it's talked about every day. It's talked about in the legislature every day, but there hasn't seemed to be that consensus that this is the one we're going with yet. I think, you guys are elected as well. I think they'd be crazy to leave town without anything, but their only constitutional mandate is to pass a budget and they can leave town. So I think it's more going to be on timing and what else they can fit into that vehicle and keep it moving.
Thank you. I would ask a couple of questions regarding Senate Bill 2, which is an attack on TIFs. I know today I listened in on some League of Cities and Towns calls that they have in the morning, and they're kind of a bill that gets brought up every legislative session, and so it really is important that this community, this body, try to stay up on top with TIF, because we've had a successful TIF in this, several of them in this community. What is as far as your role, just so I know, with the League of Cities, do you meet with them regularly on that and talk about Butte's standpoints with Kelly Lynch at that? And then where do you take that from there? Do you go to the committee hearings and try to, I guess, lobby to try to get that either, tabled or passed or denied, whatever we're looking for?
Yeah, and on that particular bill has been very interesting. So process with League of Cities, again, we meet with the executive Monday, then we're constantly in contact. The league has a standing Friday 7 a.m. for updates, but I see Kelly every day, chat, or she'll send me a text whether or not this is going to hurt all cities. Sometimes she'll just say, hey, I think you should really pay attention to this with Butte. And then the process depends, are we supporting it, are we not? If we're supporting it, again, a lot of times either JP, maybe Jim would come in and testify, or one of us would testify. Then we seem to be in the committee a little more, kind of trying to massage it along. If we don't like it, a lot of that work just gets done in the hall, chatting with some of the members of the committee, trying to kill it in committee, which is always the easiest, if not moving it onto the floor and trying to whip votes to get rid of it there. As far as where we're at right now with Senate Bill 2, so there's Senate Bill 2, and right under that is Senate Bill 117. And 117 isn't as bad, and there's a lot of negotiations on trying to get some of this percentages up. Butte-Silver Bow is in a unique situation, both city, county. We're having a little bit of trouble where League of Cities is really trying to force this rate up to 100%, where Mako at this point is kind of like, well, we got some good money out of bridges. We don't really want to fight this much. But the agreement that we're hearing now is that if 117 passes and we can get agreement on everything, Senate Bill 2 goes away. And so I think that's the best scenario all around, to try and negotiate and get 117 where we can all live with it and watch Senate Bill 2 go away.
Sure. And then just one last follow-up question, kind of statement. I've been on the council for quite a few years, and it seems like every 2 years when we're going through it, the council decides to hire a firm like yours or not hire them. How effective do you feel that you and your firm have been this year? And then how effective is it having a lobbyist up there compared to not having one? I believe most major cities have one, if that is correct. If you can just kind of talk a little bit about that as we move forward.
Mr. Chair, and a great question. We have done a ton of work on Butte-Silver Bow. I think if any of you went up to the Capitol and just asked a random person, hey, do you know who's working on Butte-Silver Bow? They'd say M&M every time. We're in all these meetings. League of Cities and Towns is using us like crazy, keeping us in the loop. And I think it's very effective. I mean, as Pat said, it's 90 days. 90 days if they gavel in on the floor, that counts as a day. Only one chamber has to do it, and it counts as a day. And it seems like it's kind of, it's slow, and then it just gets moving. I mean, that transmittal deadline, was it March? It felt like it was raining bills in that building, because it seems like sometimes they waste a lot of time, and then they're up against the deadline, and everybody has an idea, and they have to hurry up and put it down and get it through. I mean, I think without some sort of lobbying or having somebody there every day, you'd be lost. Even if you got a list of bills every day of what's happening that day that could affect you, I don't know how you'd wrap your head around where are we starting, how are we going to do this. And I think with the lobbying, and you are correct, I think all the major cities have some sort of a lobbyist up there. It's a way to keep you informed. It's a way to know in real time what do you want done with this, and to just be able to track all of this stuff as it moves through. That's why people hire lobbyists, and especially a city and a town where there's so many things that could affect you throughout this process that I think everybody's head would be spinning by the time it came around. There's other things. A lot of people hire lobbyists for different reasons. you know, they'll hire a lobbyist for one bill. Either they like it or they don't like it. But I think you get your bang for your buck on this situation where you have the two of us up there all day, every day, building relationships, passing legislation, getting rid of bad legislation, keeping you guys informed of what's going on, and communicating all the time.
Sure. Thank you. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Appreciate your time and your efforts in Helena. I'm sure you got an uphill battle with Butte being a Democratic stronghold and the majority being in the Republican side. So I guess I do have a few questions, and I don't know who wants to answer them, but how many entities or how many do you represent? M&M is a lobbyist firm. How many different clients do you have that serve, you know, you're serving for in Helena at this time?
Mr. Noonan.
Let me think it in my head here real quick and just add, I would say 7, roughly.
Okay, thank you.
Follow-up, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Martin. Thank you, Mr. Noonan. When you said you speak the executive team, who are you speaking to in Butte-Silver Bow?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Fisher, every Monday we have Chief Executive Gallagher, Karen Burns, Jim Cambich, and Karen Hassler is the core team, and then anybody else who happens to have an issue or can provide some information. There are times where, you know, like Karen is a good example, where we'll need somebody to run financial numbers on how this TIF might affect this law or what this percentage might do to property taxes on new construction, things like that. So as much as we're a resource, we also use the executive team as a resource for us to be able to arm us with the information we need to be able to influence the outcome in any way that we can.
Thank you.
Follow-up, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you once again, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, Mr. Noonan, once again. So when you speak to the executive team, you kind of expect them to inform the Butte-Silver Bow Council of Commissioners what's happening in your conversations. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman,
Noonan.
Commissioner Fisher, your guys' internal workings probably, like, you know, I'd say moving forward, and if we were doing this again, maybe that's a discussion that needs to happen as to exactly how you want that to look or what that responsibility is. But yes, we meet with them, and the process beyond the executive team to all of you and what we're doing in Helena, that's really left up to you as the clients more than it is up to us. So I don't know that there was a real expectation that we wholeheartedly thought about or put in the contract or had a discussion that here's how it has to go. I would just add, things do move fast enough that sometimes it might be kind of hard to be able to pause. So, like, you know, if a bill, especially around transmittal, a bill appears, we really don't like it, we need opposition, we have 24 hours notice. We got to be careful about stalling that down until everybody can agree before we're allowed to actually go to action, or it means that it's just inaction from our part.
Is there any other commissioners with a question just before I follow up, Commissioner Fisher?
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. So, as you know, we feel as commissioners, many of us feel we were not informed about a lot of issues going on, which is sometimes we don't need to know. I mean, but when you take certain bills like House Bill 20 requires the levies to be in dollars instead of mills, that's kind of important to people on the Budget and Finance Committee in Butte-Silver Bow, like Karen, our Budget and Finance Director, Karen Hassler. So if that bill, it said it already passed, does that mean like that takes effect this fiscal year, like in July this year, or will that wait be a year older? Because when you're changing a mill to a dollar amount, that's going to wake people up. I mean, let's face it, you know, when you got a mill that's $175,000, whatever it might be, and all of a sudden you tell people to get 20 mills, and all of a sudden you tell them, you know, 20 times 170, here's what they're getting. So is that something that'll take effect right away, or does that take time?
Mr. Chairman,
Noonan.
Commissioner Fisher, as of right now, it hasn't made it through the governor. So when we get the end of session, if that bill fully makes it through so it's passed both, it's waiting. If the governor will get the option while they're still in session to do a mandatory vetoes, so he could change some things, or he could outright veto it, or he could sign it and have it become law. So once the last day of the session happens, there's 14 days maybe that the governor has then to decide on vetoes and everything that shows up after all the legislators leave Helena. Then at that point, and he signs it and it becomes law, It's generally dictated in the bill, and I'll say a rule of thumb on most fiscal things, yeah, probably July 1st. But I don't know, because some bills might say 2 years, some bills might say effective immediately. That bill's October?
I think usually if it's not stated, it's October 1st or 31st. If it doesn't say immediate effective date.
Commissioner Fisher, if I can, go to Commissioner Thatcher, and then I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Fisher, I also had a question on House Bill 20. I don't see an effective date looking at the bill. I'm just curious, so, I'm not sure if this is a question for either of you, but maybe Director Hassler, but this is just voted levies. This wouldn't be every mill levy within Butte-Silver Bow, correct?
Mr. Noonan.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Thatcher, I believe that is everyone moving forward.
Follow.
Do you know that one?
It's not accurate.
Sorry, Mr. Chair and Commissioner, and we can follow up and look at this, but I believe it is voted levies.
Follow.
I see the Finance and Budget Director back there.
Yeah, that's.
So I would just call on her just to clarify. I want to make sure that we're spreading the news out there is just so we're confident in it.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan and members of council. It is just for voted mills only, not for all mills.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Follow up, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Director Hassler. Don't go anywhere really quick. Just really quick on that. How many voted mills? Like, how many things are voted mills? I know, like economic mill levy, that's voted. This I think doesn't include the school district, as far as I'm understanding it. But what other voted mills do we have within Butte-Silver Bow?
Director Hassler.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Thatcher, it does not include the mills for the school district. It does not include the voted mills for our debt, for our general obligation debt. It would be like for the search and rescue mill and for the economic mill levy, those types of voted mills.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to follow up to some of the questions that are out there, Chief Executive Gallagher, would you be opposed if there was a commissioner that had a question on a particular Senate bill or House bill to reach out to you, to either reach out to the lobbyists, or what would that communication chain look like?
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Commissioners, so that would be totally appropriate for any commissioner to reach out to me and ask about any bill that's there. This, I think for any of us here, and I don't think Commissioner Fisher was even here when we had J.D. Lynch. So this is the first time that we've really had a lobbying group that's working on behalf of Butte-Silver Bow. And so, it's a learning process. I didn't even really know how to work through this because once the legislative session starts, it is a moving target every single day. And so, I would try to, report to the commissioners when I have my chief executive report to say, I was over in Helena, we were talking about this. These are the most important bills that we're talking about. I think that there can be some more communication that's been there, but it's been a learning process for all of us. There's no intent to not inform. But even, and I think this probably goes back to House Bill 547, that people say, well, we weren't informed. There was not a chief executive's report between the time when that bill dropped and when we came to be able to talk to the commissioners. But yet when I did have an opportunity as a chief executive report, I did state where my position was, that I had testified, and where our position was on the executive branch. So to that note, I think that we can work on these things. As I said, the last legislative session, we worked with the Montana League of Cities and Towns, MACO, and that's unique because MACO's position may be totally opposite of Montana League of Cities and Towns, and we've got to navigate what is the best avenue for us to go there. And so those two, they also lobby for Butte-Silver Bow and counties and cities. And so there's lots of different moving targets. And the Montana League of Cities and Towns sends out a report to everybody, and I think everybody's on that they can say what bills they're working on, and so those are available to everybody here. And I will say this, that the legislative body here has the ability to follow any bill, follow legislative session. It's hard for me to navigate every single bill that's going on there as well, because we're running the business of Butte-Silver Bowl as well. And so every single bill that drops or that we have them working on, I don't have an update for you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Follow-up, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher, but you got to realize, we're not like every other city in town. We are part-time commissioners. We're not like a full-time paid commissioner, so keeping us informed is very important when we only meet once a week. And the charter says we only have to meet twice a month, but we do meet once a week, and we're not overpaid by any means. So it is very important for the executive branch, whoever our fine lobbyists are working for M&M, to inform the executive branch, and the executive branch should be informing the council in that chief executive report, which comes every other week. So I'm not going to get into that, and I'm not going to get into a personal bill of 547 because that just gets a little deeper. But I appreciate what the lobbyists have done for our county, but we must remember all the time, we are a consolidated government, and when MACO and the League of Cities is working on things, they're not always working in the best interest of Butte-Silver Bow. They may be working on the same objectives, but there's a lot of difference between a consolidated city county government like Butte-Silver Bow versus the League of Cities or MACO. I read a lot of MACO emails all the time, and I think maybe that's good for Billings, Bozeman, Kalispell, all them areas. It's not really that great for Butte-Silver Bow. So asking us to read all the bills as part-time commissioners, I think it's a pretty heavy ask of you to ask us to make sure and read all the bills. I think that should weigh in on more on the executive branch or the executive team, as they call it, to come down. So with that being said, I would like to present one more question to M&M Consulting, please.
Commissioner Fisher, go ahead.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being here once again. I didn't want to get off on that subject, but it kind of gets, these sessions are sometimes. I do remember when J.D. Lynch was our lobbyist. I may not have been on the council, but I was very familiar with it. So I did start out this conversation by saying, you guys are up against the blade over there with the majority being highly voted over the Democrats over there in the House and the Senate. So, I mean, it makes your job more difficult. But with only 20 days left in the legislative session, or maybe whatever you said, it's a little too late to come and tell us what's going on now. I mean, I feel we should have been informed as we went along with this. I mean, this started January 1st. It's April 9th, We should have been informed a little more. And I understand you're passing the information down, and I appreciate that. But we just have a lack of communication here. And as I stated in my last conversation, not that we're going to follow every bill. I run a business. I work 10 hours a day. And for me to come up here and work for $600 a month, to try and follow every bill is pretty tough. But I appreciate your services, and I'm sorry if I got off track. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, Commissioner Fisher, if I may.
Mr. Noonan.
No, that makes plenty of sense. And so here is the good news, and I think that we should just be frank because you haven't had a lobbyist for a long time since JD. And there is a lot going on. And so this is a little bit new for everybody here. Everybody is a new commissioner since that time. Chief executive, everybody is new since you've actually done the process this way. I will say we've been incredibly effective, and it is very effective to have somebody there every single day who can have the relationships, which means we can wander in and out of committees. We know all of the legislators up there. We see them every day in the hall. The good news is we have 20 days left, and then you have a year and a half to decide what you want to, if you want to hire a lobbyist in a year and a half, if you do want to hire a lobbyist, who that lobbyist is, and then we can structure it differently and with different requirements as to exactly what you guys want it to look like and what would be most acceptable to council. I think this is probably a little bit of a learning experience for both of us. Like I said, 7 clients, at least 2 of them only had 2 bills that they had anything to do with, and when they're dead, that client doesn't need any more contact. for another 2 years. And so it is a heavy lift in Butte, and I think that we all are just really like grasping the fact that we had at least 55 plus bills that we were actively involved in, and that doesn't mention the other like possibly 30 to 40 bills that we just have to find out if we're supposed to be involved and who's to do it. And so I think that this will be a good chance for the next year and a half to decide what do you want that to look like. That's up to you guys more than it's up to us.
Thank you. One thing that I would like to say, regarding this is a learning experience for everybody, because I mean, some of us have been here for quite a while and have seen it. I remember when this type of an update would have came to us after the legislative session, just to give us an update of what happened and what was done, but at that point it was too late. So I do appreciate that we're actually getting it where we would still be able to have some input, left. But also along those lines, I mean, one of the duties that I look at as a commissioner is for me to be informed on things that I feel are important in my district, hence why I've been following Senate Bill 2 for quite a while, whether it was Senate Bill 1 that dealt with TIFs, Senate Bill 2, Senate Bill 3, where they're looking at the blight definitions. And it's important to me to know that, if I have questions, I can ask individuals. And I have to take some ownership in following those rules and making sure that if I have any questions, I follow through with it. And it really is for all of us to remember that we are all on the same side, and we just need to continue the communication between everybody. And this is a good learning experience, because when we go through this again in the next couple of years, we can all learn from it and make sure that we're all on the same page. So there's a lot that goes on, and I think it's just important that we remember that there's nobody on this commission, there's nobody in Butte-Silver Bow that has the idea of burning Butte down. And we are together in this, and we need to make sure we stay unified as much as we can. We will disagree on a lot of this stuff, but we need to continue to work together, and I think that's the biggest thing we need to do right now. So I do appreciate. I'm going to have some questions for Chief Executive Gallagher on this probably next week as I start to digest this letter, because there are some in here that we need to make sure that we're staying on top of. So is there any other questions? Commissioner O'Leary.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. This is a question for Mr. Noonan. Going back to kind of this conversation about updating the council, would it be an unreasonable ask in the future to have like a twice a month update sent directly to the council on some of the things that are most pressant for us as a council over as a county? And I know you're keeping the executive branch up to date, but is that something that you would do or have done with other counties?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, you're our only county as a client, and you're our first county as a client. So, yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable to be able to work with the executive team. And I think if we started out and we had every bill and then we can update them, it can be a little bit labor intensive if all of a sudden, like this document, to put together late. I would say that we can definitely do that. I think that to be real and honest about our effectiveness, it wouldn't be in your best interest to have us come here in person every Wednesday, because, I mean, today was a huge day, and so we left while they were still in committee to be here in Butte. But I think that a system to be able to work out as to exactly how the updates, so everybody can be informed, and I think it will make the process better for everybody to be able to answer their questions. I know when we first started, we gave JP and our phone number and Jim, and they sent it out to a lot of people anyway on the email I was on that listed us and our phone numbers. And so we've had an open phone policy, so anybody who had our numbers, from here for the next 20 days, you got a question about a bill that's coming up, feel free to call one of us if you want to ask questions. Ask JP. We're also open to be able to tell you. We can tell you real time, because even the document that we put together on Monday, as you'll see, some of them had hearings today. So even one of the bills you're talking about was 4.8. I haven't seen what the outcome of that is, whether it actually got out of the committee or not. So there's a constant movement of updates. But I think that we are very open. Your executive team has been very open to call and ask. It was one of the things that JP said to us when we first started. Do you care if I send out your guys' phone number and allow people to call you directly, so everything doesn't have to pass through me or the executive team, because we're very busy on a day-to-day, so sometimes that might cause a lag of 24 hours or 8 hours or whatever. And so I think everybody, if you don't have our number, it's easily accessible, but we are definitely open to being able to talk through any bills that you might be specifically interested as we finish out this session.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Follow-up, Commissioner O'Leary?
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Yeah, I guess what I was thinking is more of like an email update twice a month, just on things that are, you know, with some links to House bills, kind of like what you've done here. You know, we're, as Commissioner Fisher said, we're part-time, and, you know, we all have our day jobs, and it's hard to keep up with this stuff. But, you know, I read the MACO emails, you know, they come in once a week or something like that. And so, you know, obviously that would be a format that I think all of us could utilize in the future. So something like that, just an idea for next time if it happens.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, I mean, that we got 20 days left. I'm sure we'll be able to put another one together if it's updated before we actually get to the end of the session. And then I would feel like there's probably an expectation, whether it's the executive team or us, on how you want to do it, that when there will be a closing of session once bills get through vetoes, that'll be into May. And so whoever you want to do that here is everything we came away with. Here are some good things for Butte. There are lots of projects. Again, I don't want to underestimate just how much money there is floating out there for this entire state right now, just because of the state of the budget these last two sessions. And lots of cool programs are going to come out, and we just probably good for everybody to know that as they come up. So yeah, that is not an unreasonable ask.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Fisher?
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, gentlemen, once again. In closing, Chairman Morgan mentioned, you know, Senate Bill 2, you know, which is an interest to everybody's district. But, you know, when you look at these, this is an excellent form. This is the first time I've seen it. But even when you go to House Bill 451, where you review district, you know, increment districts for debt and financing, you know, well, I actually represent the largest TED in the city, in the county of Butte-Silver right now, out on South Harrison Avenue, you know, in that area. I mean, the URA uptown and them, they're all winding down. The new area out there is growing real fast. So that's pretty important bill to me and my district. And it should be very important to everybody in this room, because, I mean, you got a $26 million investment going on out there. You got a $5 or $6 million investment going on the street. These are things that are of interest to us. And House Bill 451, this is the first I've seen of it. So appreciate what you've done here. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, council members.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, I'll continue on in the agenda. Section 2, Communications. Number 1, Communication 2025-142. Zach Osborne, Butte-Silver Bow, Chief, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing on April 2nd, 2025 for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 24-25 fire department budget to allow for increased expenditures of unanticipated revenue. I believe this public hearing was held last week, so Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to place on file communication number 2025-142.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 2025-142 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
9 yeas, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 2, Communication 2025-143. Aubrey Japp, Butte-Silver Bow Archives Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a presentation on April 9th, 2025 regarding the Archives 2024 Annual Report. We did have this presentation tonight. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to place on file communication number 2025-143.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 2025- file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Okay, would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
9 yeas, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 3, Communication 2025-155, Lisa Carey, Emergency Management Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing on April 16th, 2025, for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 24-25 budget to allow for increased expenditures of unanticipated revenue received from the State Homeland Security Grant Program in the amount of $114,613.41. We'll continue to hold that in abeyance pending the public hearing on April 16th. Number 4, Communication number 2025-168, Lisa Carey, Butte-Silver Bow Emergency Management Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing on April 16th, 2025, for unanticipated revenue regarding a hazardous material emergency preparedness HMPE grant for IAFC Hazmat Conference in Baltimore, MD. We'll continue to hold this in abeyance pending the public hearing on April 16th. Number 5, Communication 2025-170, Lori Baker Patrick, Butte-Silver Bow County Treasurer, requesting Council of Commissioners direct the County Attorney to prepare a council resolution authorizing the mailing of tax deed notifications. We're going to continue to hold this in abeyance as the resolution hasn't been introduced to this body yet, so I would love to answer the question that was before us, but we haven't seen the resolution yet. So we'll continue to hold this in abeyance, and I believe it'll be introduced next week at that meeting. So we'll continue to hold that in abeyance. Number 6, Communication 2025-183, J.P. Gallagher, Chief Executive, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a presentation for April 9th, 2025, regarding updates of the 2025 legislative session. We did hold this presentation tonight, so Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to place on file communication number 2025-183.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to place Communication 2025-183 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Okay, would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
9 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is any public comment on any public matter that's not on the agenda. Now would be the time for a member of the public to come up and comment on any public matter that's not on the agenda. Is there any member of the public that would like to do so? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none.